It was a terrifying experience that remained etched in his memory. Coming from a medical family, he was one of 5 siblings. Though originally from a village, unforeseen circumstances had forced them to relocate to the city, where they lived in a rented house. Only his father and elder brother were earning, yet their financial struggles persisted. Wanting to support his family, he decided to find a job. At 20 years old, having just passed his intermediate exams, he searched for part-time work that would allow him to continue his studies while managing his expenses. After weeks of effort, he still found nothing. When he shared his concerns with his elder brother, his brother sought help from friends. A few days later, one of them called with an opportunity. Excited, he met the friend, who introduced him to an acquaintance, a hospital owner in need of a night guard for the mortuary. The hospital was located in a desolate area, its services limited to the mortuary. The job came with a good salary, so he agreed, thinking it would be manageable alongside his studies. The next day, he was driven to the hospital, which was about an hour and a half from the city. Even in daylight, the road was eerily deserted. Upon arrival, they explained his duties and showed him his living quarters, a small room with a kitchen where he had to prepare his own meals. Despite the daylight, the hospital had an unsettling darkness and silence. For the first few nights, he managed to suppress his fear. During the day, grieving families would come to collect their deceased loved ones. The 5th night, winter's cold had settled in heavily by his 5th night on duty. That evening, around 7 p.m., an ambulance delivered the body of a young woman, around 23 or 24 years old. After the ambulance driver left, he carefully placed her on a stretcher against the wall, while cleaning the freezer tray where she was to be stored. As he worked, he noticed something odd. Her head had turned slightly to one side. A chill ran down his spine. When the body arrived, her head had been straight. Brushing away his unease, he assumed it had shifted during transportation. With trembling hands, he gently straightened it and resumed cleaning. A strange sensation crept over him, the unmistakable feeling of someone standing behind him. His body stiffened, paralyzed by fear. His mind screamed that if he turned around, he would see the body standing there. Summoning his courage, he spun around. The body remained on the stretcher, yet her head had turned again, this time directly facing him. Panic clawed at his chest. He had just fixed her head. How had it moved again? Convincing himself it was his imagination, he once more adjusted her position and completed his task. Checking the identification tag, he read her name, Aisha. Her limbs were broken. Her body bore signs of torture. It was not merely an accident. She had suffered immensely before death. Pushing these thoughts away, he finished his work and returned to his room on the 2nd floor. As he ate, a sudden noise from the storage room interrupted him. Something had fallen. At first, he ignored it. Then another loud crash echoed through the hospital, as if someone had thrown something in anger. A creeping dread settled over him. He was alone in the hospital. Who could be making those noises? Gripping a torch, he cautiously approached the storage room. Just as he reached for the door handle, the power cut out. The hospital plunged into darkness. Determined to fix the generator, he climbed to the rooftop where it was kept. Despite his efforts, it refused to start. A sudden gust of wind whooshed past him, but it felt unnatural, like something unseen had rushed by at an impossible speed. Shining his torch around, he found nothing. When he finally entered the storage room, his blood ran cold. Boxes had been violently overturned. Their contents spilled across the floor. It was as if someone, or something, had deliberately thrown them. After hurriedly cleaning up, he rushed to check the main switchboard near the reception. As he descended the stairs, his torch's beam flickered across the dimly lit corridor. Then he saw it. A shadowy figure stood at the far end of the hallway near the operation theaters. His breath hitched. He froze. He didn't dare shine his torch directly at it, but he knew. Someone was there. Summoning every ounce of courage, he took a step forward. The darkness felt suffocating. His pulse pounded in his ears as he lifted his torch. Nothing. The figure was gone. His mind whirled. Had he imagined it? Then a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. It came from the mortuary. Terror seized him, but something compelled him forward. He reached the mortuary door, which was slightly ajar. Taking a deep breath, he pushed it open. Cold air blasted against him. His torchlight swept the room. The stretcher was empty. Aisha's body was gone. A sickening dread twisted his stomach. He had placed her there himself. There was no mistake. Then from the far corner of the room, a faint sound. A slow, rhythmic thudding, knocking, from inside one of the body storage cabinets. His breath hitched. His limbs refused to move, but the knocking grew more urgent. With trembling fingers, he grasped the handle and pulled the door open. Aisha's lifeless eyes stared back at him. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream, her nails bloodied from clawing at the metal. A wave of horror crashed over him. Then, her body jerked violently. Her head twisted toward him with a sickening crack. And then, she moved. A grotesque smile stretched across her burnt face. "Did you think I was dead?" Her voice was hoarse, inhuman. Panic surged through him, but his feet remained rooted in place. Aisha's broken fingers scraped against the metal as she crawled out of the cabinet, leaving bloody streaks behind. He staggered back, his heart hammering in his chest. "This isn't real. This isn't real." Aisha's head twitched violently. "You left me," she whispered. "Now, I'll take you with me." She lunged. Darkness swallowed him. He awoke gasping, drenched in sweat. Morning light streamed through the window. He was in his own bed. A dream. It was just a nightmare. Shaking, he reached for his phone. Something cold brushed against his fingers. A blood-stained nail lay beside it. The world tilted, his vision blurred. Then, a whisper chillingly close. "You left me." A cold hand gripped his wrist, and the screaming never stopped.